Welcome to the 22nd episode of the Most Serious Podcast. In today's episode, I talk to Miss Sherry Edwards, who's a nutrition coach. She's a master's athletes trainer. She's also a super fit person. Sherry Edwards has been helping people get back into their best shape. She has been helping them to get their diets proper, eat the right foods, get the right nutrients. In this episode, we talk about all of that. We talk about health and nutrition. We talk about sleep. We talk about exercise. We talk about what foods are you eating at what time are you eating them? Does that affect your whole lifestyle? We also try to answer some questions like, is getting into shape achievable for anyone? Do you have to be a very strict disciplinarian when it comes to your diet? What are some basic fundamental principles that you need to follow to get a better lifestyle? We also try to debunk some myths that are constantly associated in this health and nutrition space. I would recommend for you to listen to this episode if you want to improve your physical and mental health. We could not record the video for the whole podcast episode. We lost some video footage due to some technical issues. To listen to the whole podcast episode, you can tune in into any of the platforms like Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. The complete episode is available there. I hope you like the conversation today. Let's get into the episode now. Sherry Edwards, it's an honor to meet you finally. Welcome to the Most Serious Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me here. I love the name of your podcast. I love it. Thank you.
Now, just to start this conversation off, and I know you don't like terming food as good and bad, but do you have those midnight cravings, or do you go out for eating those snacks and ordering a pizza maybe at 12 a.m.? Or are you a hardcore disciplined nutritionist?
I am neither this nor that. So I sort of eat a very balanced diet. And when I say balanced diet, people are like, oh, you must eat really healthy, really well. I'm like, I don't have a perfect diet. I don't really believe in a perfect diet. Like, as a nutrition coach, I try to do what I preach. So I coach my clients in understanding the basics to good nutrition. So, well, what is that? It's a varied diet. I don't restrict anything. So that also means I don't restrict cake. I don't restrict chocolate. I don't restrict, like Doritos. I absolutely every podcast or everything I've been on, I talk about Doritos because it is literally one of my favorite things to eat. But okay. On the other hand, the majority of the foods that I eat are home cooked, and I do eat as fresh as possible. So I tell the people that I work with or my followers to just have a varied diet. Eat the things that you do love, but surround them with whole foods and fresh food. So to answer your question, do I get the sort of like late night munchies? I go to bed every night at the same time at 10 o'clock. And me and my husband will eat at 9 p.m. every night before we go to bed. That's just sort of the way we do things, because I believe in sort of spreading out your calories or your energy so that you're not starving in the middle of the night. I know people that wake up in the middle of the night hungry, or people who wake up in the morning and they're really, really hungry. So I sort of just tend to spread my food out across the day.
That would be like a delight to most of the people who are struggling with whatever new nutrition techniques they're trying out. I think they'll be very happy to hear that you can have these foods and you can balance them out with the whole nutrients that you talked about. So yeah, please continue.
Sorry, I just wanted to add, it's really important that there are some very misleading information out there, like, okay, obviously, if I were to recommend someone to eat processed foods and pizzas and burgers every single day, that's not going to do anything for your health either. That's clearly not what I'm trying to say. Have a balanced diet isn't eat the majority of whole foods. However, saying that, it doesn't matter what time of the day you eat. So you do get people that create strict rules saying, I'm not going to eat after 6 o'clock. A burger is a burger, whether it's 5:59 or 8 p.m. It doesn't matter. The calories of a certain food stays exactly the same no matter what time you eat it. So don't be afraid to eat at night. What we don't want is mindless snacking, where people just sit in front of the TV and they're reaching for the popcorn and then they're eating and they're eating and they're eating, they're eating when they're no longer hungry. So that's what we want to tap into. We want to go, okay, I am eating because I am bored, or I'm eating because I'm I've created these habits where I turn on Netflix, I then sit down to eat. So we want to tap into these hunger or fullness cues that the body is naturally telling you, because that is the whole point of having the hormones. They do these natural things to your body so that you can maintain your weight or a healthy level of body weight. So don't be afraid to eat whenever you want to, so long as you're making decent food choices and just eating when you are hungry.
That's a very interesting point that you took, and you mentioned that they call it binge watching and then binge eating. Also, I think they have this
That's
term
right.
for it. Yeah. So I want to talk about that also. Like neuro, they have this psychological explanation to it also, that you eat it maybe because it's kind of like self-loathing and you feel bad about eating it, then you eat something more, and it's that sort of psychology. But again, this brings me back to the main question that I wanted to ask is, like, these processed foods, they're now at the disposal of everyone probably, and they're very easy to get, I think. And it's really easy to be mindless about your eating habits, I think, more than ever. So do you feel about that the same way? Do you think it's tougher in the current timeline, in the current time frame, to be more conscious of the food you eat and the practices that you have?
150%. So the problem we have with processed food is that people think that all processed foods are evil. That's not the point. Yes, some processed foods will contain less nutrients, but there is, as we've sort of discussed in the beginning, there is no good and bad foods. Food isn't like evil or
Yeah.
great for you. Food is literally just energy that you put in your body. Sometimes that energy is maybe more beneficial for you, or sometimes it has less nutrients. But I think when you go down the route of highly processed foods that come out of bags, like, okay, take Doritos, for example. It's literally one of my favorite things to eat.
Yeah.
Highly processed, and it's also very hyper palatable. So that means that when you eat one, you can't just eat one. You eat two, you eat three, and you
Yeah.
smash the whole bag, and you're like, oh my word, I've just smashed 900 calories of Doritos and I am still not even full. Whereas if you were to eat a bowl of oatmeal and some yogurt and some berries, you're actually going to feel very, very full. So yes, it's very difficult to control your food cravings when you're around, modern society. Like, you look everywhere. If you're on social media, you've got beautiful, sexy photos of food, and then someone else is eating something that looks beautiful, or like a picture of like a cookie or something baked and is oozing with chocolate. It looks beautiful. And then when you eat it, it's hyper palatable. So being able to eat a little bit makes it very, very difficult. And as you say, in the current situation that we are in now, people sort of living in and out of the pandemic, you're forgetting that we crave things and we like to feel good when we do things. So you get the hedonic pleasures of food. So you eat something and then you eat and it tastes amazing. And if you have a good relationship with food, you'll go, wow, that tasted amazing. Let's put that where it is and then get on with life. If you don't have a good relationship with food, what happens is that you go, wow, I'm a terrible person. I've probably just gained loads of weight. I'm a failure. I feel terrible. What do I do? How do I fix that feeling? Oh, I know. Eating more creates this pleasurable feeling, but it's only for maybe a minute or two. And then you go through this binge cycle of eating and feeling terrible, eating and feeling terrible. And that is extremely heartbreaking when you see somebody go through that, because that cycle needs to be broken, and it's a very, very difficult process to go through. So that's why I sort of talk to people a lot about being aware of where you are, how you feel. It's not just we know that a bowl of salad is probably going to be better than a bowl of Doritos, yet sometimes when we're in a bad place emotionally, we reach for things that give us pleasure because
Yeah.
it gives us instant pleasure, basically.
This has been like true for most of the domains also. Like, if food and health is like, nutrition is like the most primary part of our being, I guess. But we see people all around us struggling with, let's say, the instant gratification part of things. Everyone wants immediate results. Let me just hop onto this project and then get eventually so big, so famous immediately. So as this progresses, how do you see the human race going through this change? Because I believe like from your childhood also it has like evolved rapidly, and probably in the next 10 years it will change more rapidly. So what do you think? Where do we go from here?
I am hoping that we as humans learn to go back to our roots. So
Okay.
noticing things that the body naturally is designed to make you notice. So we go back to hormones. The hormones will tell us when to feel sleepy, when to wake up. We've got like natural circadian rhythms in the body. And then you have hormones that tell you when you're hungry. You have hormones that are released to tell you to stop eating because you should feel full. When, let's just say, we didn't have television and we didn't have social media and we didn't look at all of these foods, beautiful pictures of food, we didn't have advertisements on TV, and let's just say we didn't have processed food that tasted amazing, and we would just eat to stay alive, and we would
Yeah.
stop because we are no longer full. That is really that's the sort of like the basics of human survival, right? It's we should only eat when we need it and we should stop when we don't. But we do the things that we do because, as I said, we live in a modern society, and I'm probably one of the most guilty people. I absolutely love food. Like, I mean, I'm from Bangkok, so similar to
Yeah.
Where you are. Like, food is bright, food is beautiful, food smells nice. It's so pungent. So not only does it like attack all of your senses, like your sights, your smells, everything, it just tastes nice. So we want more of it. So it's okay to want food and to really enjoy food, but just sort of being a little bit more aware of how much our senses are sort of like being attacked on a daily basis. So maybe just
Yeah.
scale back a little bit. We don't need to look at bright colored foods all the time. We don't need to like taste amazing things all the time. We don't need to feel very full. We definitely don't need to feel very full.
Did Sherry Edwards have had this all of enlightenment with food and nutrition right at the beginning, or did you struggle with it? When did this journey start?
This journey started, I suppose, as a nutrition coach. Like, it is a very newfound thing for me. And for most of my life, I would just eat when I wanted to eat. I didn't
Yeah.
just eat when I was hungry. I would eat when I was bored. I would eat when I was angry. I would eat when I was emotional. I really have spent most of my life eating food as a pleasurable experience, and I like the way food looks, and I like cute, presentable things on it. Like, it's just what I do, and I cook as well. I cook and I bake, and it's just something that I really do enjoy. So I get the struggles, but I think as a nutrition coach, I also understand the importance of teaching people to tap into those natural bodily cues, and knowing sort of, okay, we eat because we enjoy food, and that's totally okay, but maybe stop when we are no longer really hungry. So when you get to the point of being full, we don't need to eat anymore. The food is going to be there. If you've baked a piece of cake, eat a piece. And if you're no longer hungry, then you don't need to eat it again. The rest is still going to be there tomorrow. There's no need to eat more than what your body needs to eat, basically.
Do you think like this whole regime that you kind of explained it so naturally, and it seems a lot, it makes a lot of sense to me. Also, it seems like this could be the right path, and it sounds super easy. But again, like if a person is struggling with this, they know that I made a productive plan. Okay, I'm gonna eat this. I'm gonna keep track of my calories. But when it comes to at the deciding point, when I have that extra piece of slice of pizza left, and I just can't control my cravings. So at that point, do you have a conscious thought process that you tell yourself, or is it a disciplinary habit that develops over time? So how would you go about telling someone, how do you develop this patience or this mindfulness?
So those are some excellent questions. As you are in something, as soon as something is happening to you, it's very difficult to stop it. So
Yeah.
this is why the mindfulness needs to happen before the process. So
Mm.
habits are fantastic because they are there to save you time and energy, so you don't have to think. Your brain isn't constantly like having to think about things all the time. Habits are created so that they're shortcuts, basically.
Yeah.
We do A and B happens, so that's basically a habit loop. But sometimes we create habits that are not healthy or not good for the goals that we want to get to. So for someone who likes to eat food and then 5 minutes later they look down and they're like, oh, the food's already gone. How I coach my clients is I use a few different coaching methods. So one of them is to eat slowly. And for someone who really does enjoy the taste of food and the experience of eating, that's going to be difficult. And as we've just said, habits take time. Habits are hard to break, but if you create good habits are also hard to break, right? But it also means that you have to do it enough times until your body gets used to it, so you no longer have to think about it. So eating slowly means feeling every single bite, feeling the food on your tongue, in your mouth, on your palate, and tasting all of them, and maybe even taking a moment to go, wow, okay, I can smell some cumin, I can sense some coriander, all of that, like as if you're wine tasting your food. Put your spoon and your fork and all of that down for a moment in between the bites, and then before you move on to the next bite, make sure that you finish everything in your mouth, then do that. Another really good habit I try to get people to do is, aside from eating slowly, is to eat to what they consider 80% full. And the way we do that is, it's going to take some practice, because sometimes you're like, I'm not really sure what that means. You eat to feeling really, really stuffed. So what I tell my clients is, eat your meal super slowly. And when there's still a little bit of food left on your plate, drink a glass of water, stand up, and see how you feel. And then if you're still hungry, then by all means eat it. And the process of eating slowly and, letting your body process all of that. Again, we go back to when your nose smells the food and it wafts back up through the body, hormones are released so that you can then digest all of that. And then as it goes and travels through your digestive system, you also get hormones released telling your body, okay, I've had some food, I am full now. But what happens is that when we eat, the hormones don't get to catch up with us. And then you don't get to feel full when your body is physically full. There's sort of like a little bit of a delay in that message. So the eating slowly is super helpful.
That's a practical advice. I think it can be implemented in your lifestyle, but again, it takes patience, it takes time. And the bit that I like the most is like, get aware about the process before the process actually begins, because it's really tough to then bring yourself out of the whole sphere and then make those decisions, because once you are in
That's
it, then
right.
yeah.
So as you say, it's hard when you're already eating something, especially something that is very hyper palatable, and you're hungry. You just want to sit down and eat. So before you sit down and eat, or as you're walking into the kitchen and you're reaching into the kitchen cabinet for a bag of chocolate or whatever it is, just go, okay, I'm reaching in for a bag of chocolate. I know I'm going to eat it. Does this align with my goals? And sometimes the answer might be, it doesn't align with my goals and I want to eat it anyway. That's okay. But you've taken a moment to process that information, as opposed to it just being on habit loop and an automatic brain movement where you're just grabbing the chocolate and it goes straight in. Grab the chocolate, think about what you're about to eat, have one, see how you feel about it, eat slowly, right? It's hard. It's very difficult, especially if you're someone who doesn't have a good relationship with food, but it is possible to change. You just have to bring awareness to it, just practicing mindfulness when you can.
There's something that I see often in my lifestyle also, and I see it around people. So everyone now mostly, like, do you believe in the concept of having food, like, giving the time to food? As you mentioned, I believe you totally do that. You take time out and you actually enjoy that food. You spend time with it, and then you, as you said, wine tasting is a very passive activity. You spend time with it, you get into the zone of it. Now, most of the people, and most of the times me as well, I try to maybe start a Netflix show while watching something, or maybe watch a YouTube video while my breakfast. So how unhealthy is that habit? Also, what does it do to my eating habits? Because I can't now just sit and eat by myself. I can't enjoy the taste of food because I'll feel bored when I'll try to do that. So is that the part of a discipline that like again you have to develop it over time, or is this something that's okay? Like you can eat food while watching TV or maybe something.
So that's a really good question. Sometimes the fast eaters are the ones that are the most distracted. You know, the joke that they say, like, I didn't get closure on that last piece of chocolate, because you don't realize you're eating it, right? Because you're
Hmm.
watching TV or you're on your phone and you're, like scrolling through social media feeds and all of that. So I do tell people, if that is an exercise that they need to do and I feel they would benefit from it, I do say, okay, pause, turn everything off. Don't even do your work by the computer or nothing at all. Just your food and your spoon and your fork, and that's it. Just eat and eat slowly. That way you can actually experience the whole process of eating your food and really enjoying it. What I would also say is, again, depending on each individual, sometimes it doesn't matter to them. Like, I actually do enjoy my sort of Netflix at night and my bowl of yogurt, so that doesn't affect me. But I will say for sure, I can see a pattern there. I do just scoff down the food pretty quickly because you're not paying attention to the food. So
Yeah.
yes, that's definitely one of those things that you can watch out for as a trigger.
Also, this when I was going through all of your work that you've done, and you mentioned this as some foods are, when you term a food, then it becomes like a really dangerous line to walk on, because then you feel guilty about eating some foods, and you feel maybe, let's say, overexcited about eating some foods. And food is just food. You label it, and then you maybe kind of make a situation for it for yourself. But still, again, it comes back to this, like when someone eats, maybe let's say a chocolate, or they are on some diet. I'm not very much aware about the diets that they have now. There are so many diets that people have come up with, many gurus have come. So people get really guilty about the food that they just ate, and then they again feel in a very depreciated sort of manner. They think that all of my hard work is done. Maybe I went to the gym, but I just ate this bag of chips. So now, does that actually impact as much as the psychology is impacting? Because since they are feeling like really down after eating that bag of chips, and they just worked out, so how much of it is actually hurting them, and how much are they hurting themselves?
They are hurting themselves more by thinking about how much damage they did than the
Yeah.
actual damage, right? So I always
Wow.
give this example. If you spent the whole week eating burgers and, McDonald's and all sorts of hyper super processed stuff every single day, and then you sat down for one meal and you ate spinach, do you think that one meal of spinach is going to undo what you've just done to your body for the whole week? Probably not. People understand when I give them that example, but then when you switch it around and you say, okay, you spent the whole week eating processed food and you ate really well, but then all of a sudden on one meal, you sit down and you eat a whole bag of chips. Do you think that's going to undo your process? It won't. It absolutely will not. But people can't get that out of their head. So it's what I call like catastrophizing. It's like overthinking about what you've done. You haven't damaged your body at all. And I can promise you, you have not. But another thing to think about is that when people eat that way, they step on the scale the next day. They step on the scale because they want to know what damage they've done. And you know what? The weight has gone up by loads, but the weight that's gone up is not fat. I can promise you that. The weight is water weight from the amount of carbohydrates that you've consumed, from all of the sodium, from maybe all the beer and all of that you've been eating in the last 24 hours. It has not ruined your progress. So don't worry about it. Just because you've spent maybe a day eating something, just get straight back on. What it can do to someone psychologically is, if you think that you've done something bad and then you're like, oh, well, you've fallen off the wagon, I might as well just continue to eat bad. And that's where you get the sort of Friday evening, then Saturday, then Sunday, and then diet starts again on Monday. In that case, you are then yo-yo dieting. You're going in and out. So I would say, have fun, try to stay as consistent as you can. And if you feel like one or two meals over the weekend is going to throw you off, it's absolutely fine.
So, like, also again, this is something, maybe you should people consider going to an expert to find this out. But how do you actually know that you're healthy and you're on the right track to your life, and you're doing the right habits and you're taking care of yourself?
So in order to see whether a person is making the right choices or not, I think it depends on each individual. But if you just wanted to know if you were eating well enough and you felt good, I think the best way to track that progress is to look at how well you're sleeping, what your mood is like, and what your energy is like. People think that tracking with a bathroom scale is going to change things. It is not. It doesn't matter how much you weigh. within reason. If you're incredibly underweight or if you are incredibly overweight, obviously these issues might need to, be seen with from a professional person.
Yeah.
But I think it doesn't really matter if you feel good in yourself. If you have loads of energy, you can walk up a flight of stairs without feeling too tired. You are sleeping well, so no broken sleep. You're able to sleep as soon as you go to bed, and your mood is steady. And those are really the only things we need to know. Ideally, you want to be making better food choices as well. And what that means is making sure that you're eating the rainbow. So eating fresh colored, bright colored vegetables and fruit and, your grains, your whole grains, and minimizing processed food when you can.
So, Sherry, you mentioned a very interesting point here, like going to sleep as soon as you hit the bed. So is that something that's natural to you? Do you do that? And also, how can people do that? Because I see lots of YouTube videos on going to sleep as soon as you hit your bed in 5 minutes, 2 minutes. But what is exactly the science behind it?
Obviously, in terms of the science behind it, that's out of my scope of practice.
Yeah.
But I definitely do sleeping exercises with my clients, and I give them activities to do. So I say absolutely no caffeine in the 4 to 6 hours before going to bed. Your tolerance level to caffeine will be different to each person, but if you can avoid it 4 to 6 hours before going to bed. Before you go to bed, try to turn off all social media or any screens, computers, TV, at least an hour if you can. Try to dim the lights. Any noises, try to keep it down.
So, Sherry Edwards, thank you so much for doing this. I had a great time talking to you, learned a lot about nutrition. And thank you. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me here. I really enjoyed my time here. Thank you.
And this brings us to the end of this really awesome episode of the Most Serious Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it did add some value in your life. We will be back again with another interesting conversation pretty soon.